Tonight is a full moon lunar eclipse. This is Tracy with Tracy Talks, a podcast about life, looking at life from a new perspective to gain wisdom and understanding in hopes to know yourself more. Tonight is a lunar eclipse, and the moon is going to look a blood red. And in ancient times, before people didn't understand the cycles and what was actually happening, eclipses were a bad omen. And now that we know more about the cycles and understand the cycles and how the planetary alignments rotate, these phenomenon are not as traumatic and they don't cause as much anxiety and fear, but they are still significant symbols in our life. And so the moon in astrology, and the moon represents our emotions and our emotional self. The moon in your astrological chart can also represent a mother figure, a mother type. And so these significant times like eclipses, we can often gain additional insight about what we're feeling, what we're experiencing, what we're going through in life. This is a good time to really sit and feel what emotions are coming up within you. Maybe there are things that need to shift and change. Maybe there are things that are at a natural ending cycle. And eclipses do that. They can bring abrupt changes in our life. We don't always openly embrace significant change until we get somewhere down the path and realize that sometimes we hold on to things too long. We hold on to relationships and jobs and people and places longer than we naturally should. And sometimes things happen in our life and there are swift and abrupt endings. In those moments, it can be scary, it can be fear, we can have fear, we can have anxiety, but change isn't always bad. And I know for me today and for the next week, I'm going to be reflecting on some of the things that I need to let go, some of the behaviors, or maybe I just need to change the direction of my life. So often we have our mind set on a particular course or a goal, or we have a direction, and we keep pushing forward in that direction no matter what feedback we're getting. And sometimes it really isn't the right path, and it really isn't the way we want to be going or we need to be going, and yet we keep pushing through. I feel like with this eclipse, this is a perfect time for me to evaluate and listen to my intuition where I need to be directing my focus. It's believed that eclipses can have significant impact for the next 6 months, that there are larger cycles of these eclipses. And this one specifically is a cycle that occurred from 2004 to 2006. So oftentimes with eclipses, there are definite cycles, and you can go back to where these were happening in our past and look and see what themes were coming up in life. And maybe there's a repeating pattern, or maybe there's another chapter to the story, that the story is evolving and unfolding. If nothing else, I will be taking in the moon's rays tonight and soaking up the energy. I mean, the moon is always full. We just don't always see its brilliance because of the shadow. Tonight, I'm going to spend some time sitting in the rays of the moon and soaking up the fullness of the energy, of the information, of the insight that is being illuminated for me and through me and in me. So often we don't want to see cycles come to an end. We don't want to see the endings. We want to always we want to have safety and security in maintaining life as we know it. But if we look around to the natural world and we look at the cycles, and certainly here in the Midwest, we experience the full depth of the seasons. And even if we look at the trees and the flowers and the animals and how there is this natural growing period and then there's a dying period, and oftentimes we as humans, we don't want to experience those same cycles. We don't want to feel the death. We only want to feel the birth and the sunlight and the warmth and the growing season. But that's not how life is. And sometimes it's necessary to prune back the bushes. It's necessary to prune the trees. It's necessary to cut back on parts of our life so we can be stimulated again to grow, and we can grow in new ways and new directions. I am going to take time to sit with all of my feelings and emotions and see what new direction I can grow in. I want to reflect on, where do I want to try something new? And often that's going to require me to let go of something that I have now. I hope each one of you can embrace the cycles of change. I hope each one of you can spend some time over this next week and reflect on what is calling to you, what messages are coming up in your heart, what your spirit is trying to whisper to you. And if something does fall away in your life or something does change, I hope you can find the peace and security to know that change is inevitable, and sometimes we don't even know where we really need to change. But I do believe we do have the strength and courage to get through anything. I hope that you are spending time tonight in the rays and the beams of the moon. And I hope you can just soak up the messages and the energy that she is willing to share. Thank you for listening to this podcast of Tracy Talks. Please like and share with others who would enjoy listening to this podcast. And until next time, we meet again.